Hey, what's up, 12s? Sorry for not posting over the last few weeks, but I've been busy over Labor Day weekend and all. But I'll make up for this in the next few weeks with a bunch of movies, so be sure to be out looking for those. Seattle finalized their final 53-man roster over this weekend, and they also made a monstrous trade for defensive end Jadeveon Clowney, which is a big deal, which will pretty much help Seattle win the NFC West. Don't be surprised if they do. Now here are the original cuts from last Saturday. A few things have changed since those few trades happened. So, the big name players that you'll probably recognize, wide receiver Jaron Brown. He was brought back a few days later after the Clowney trade. Defensive end Cassius Marsh. Center Marcus Martin. Defensive tackle Jamie Meter. Defensive back Deshaun Shedd. Quarterback Geno Smith, who was brought back later. And the thing that surprised me most, they cut cornerback Jamar Taylor. But Seattle did trade for another corner who could potentially start for him. But right now it looks like Akeem King will be the starter. And the players that were waived, quarterback J.T. Barrett, wide receiver Jazz Ferguson, tight end Jackson Harris, tackle Will Holden, tight end Jacob Hollister. I said I was going to be angry when they did this, and if they did this, and I am. They should have kept him. Linebacker Luwan Johnson, wide receiver Khalil Lewis, safety Shalom Luwani, quarterback Paxton Lynch, J.D. McKissick, Earl Mitchell, Naquan Murray, Elijah Nikasa, Keenan Reynolds, Jordan Roos, Wes Saxton, Bo Scarborough, Logan Tago, Simeon Thomas, Landon Turner, Xavier Turner, Brian Wallace, Terry Wright, Juan Young. The injured wave players, cornerback Jeremy Boykin, linebacker Justin Curry. And for the trades that happened over the weekend, Seattle acquired cornerback Perry Nickerson from New York to potentially start in the slot corner position. And then you all know that they traded for Clowney from Houston. Now here's where the roster starts in my time today. Quarterbacks, Russell Wilson. Backup, Geno Smith. He was brought back later a few days after the trade. So it was kind of a strategic move to clear up cap space so they could keep room for those two guys that traded, Mingo and Martin, who were traded for Clowney, so they were able to make room to get Geno Smith back. Running backs, Chris Carson, we all know who'd stay there, Rashad Penny, Travis Homer, CJ Prosise. And then fullback, we have Nick Bellore, who was brought back later after being cut. I don't really have anything to say about that. Wide receivers, Tyler Lockett, Jaron Brown, who was originally cut, like I said earlier, but he was brought back. David Moore, I was sure he would make the injury list, but he is on the regular roster. Malik Turner was a surprise. John Ursula, Gary Jennings, and DK Metcalf. Metcalf is listed as the number 2 receiver behind Lockett, which is kind of a bad thing for Brown. He was the number 2 guy, and now he ended up being cut and then barely making the roster again. And then tight ends, I was kind of surprised that they didn't keep 3. They only have Will Dissly and Nick Vannett. Offensive line with Dwayne Brown, Mike Iupati, Justin Britt, DJ Fluker, and Jermaine Fetty. In the backups, we have George Fant, Jamarco Jones, Ethan Posick, and Joey Hunt. Defensive line, pass rushers, we have Ziggy Ansah, Jadeveon Clowney, LJ Collier, Rasheem Green, Brandon Jackson, and then for the tackles, we have Poona Ford, Quentin Jefferson, Al Woods, and Brian Monet. Go back and see my movie I said earlier, that I posted earlier, that I said that Brian Monet would make the roster, and he did. Yeah. Since Jarran Reed is suspended, they have him on a non-football reserve list, so he is safe. He will still be available later, and then when he comes back, I don't know if they'll cut Monet. It depends. The linebackers, we all know Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, and Michael Kendricks. And then they kept the 2 rookies, Cody Barton and Ben Burke-Irvin. And then they kept Shaquem Griffin. I was kind of surprised. I was expecting him to be put on the injured list and having Austin Calitro, but according to head coach Pete Carroll, he said it was a number, they went by the numbers, and Calitro, I guess they didn't like what his numbers, like the look of his numbers, so. A funny fact, he can possibly be playing for Cincinnati in week 1, so. In DBs, we have the starting 4, Shaquille Griffin, Trey Flowers, Bradley McDougald, Tedrick Thompson, and then probably for the slot corner for week 1, Akeem King. And then the backup safeties, and pretty much the backup safeties, we got Ugo Amadi, Marquise Blair, Lano Hill, Nico Thorpe, cornerback, he is probably going to be playing mostly special teams. And then they traded for cornerback Perry Nickerson from New York. As far as the reserve list, the injury reserve, which, if you ended up on that, you're done for the season. Players who are on that, sadly, are Jeremy Boykins, Adam Choice, Justin Curry, Ed Dixon, Emmanuel Ellerby, Justin Johnson, Nazir Jones, Demetrius Knox, Kalen Reed, and Jordan Simmons. It's kind of bad for Simmons, He looked like he could be a starter last year. He did start a couple of games. Both of them, they had a 200-yard rusher, so that says something. For the PUP list, Phil Haynes and DeMarcus Christmas, both fellow rookies. Both of them did not participate in the preseason, which is very unfortunate. And for the 10-man practice squad, Seattle brought back Jazz Ferguson, and they have Kyle Fuller. Jacob Hollister was brought back. Thank goodness. Khalil McKenzie, Ryan Neal, Elijah Nakasa. I hope I'm saying that right. I feel really stupid. And then Jacoy Pulte, Jordan Roos, Simeon Thomas, and Terry Wright. So that is who Seattle has for the starting roster and the reserve list. Great news, Pete Carroll said that both pass rushers, Ziggy Ansah and Jadeveon Clowney, will start in week 1. So if Seattle is able to get the run game going, they can just pin back Cincy's ears and not let them do anything. And come up with a lot of sacks and possibly resulting in a lot of interceptions. And DK Metcalf will start as the number 2 receiver. And hopefully he does produce because he's on my fantasy list, so yeah. What moves surprised you most by Seattle? Leave them below. And if you have any ideas for future movies, please leave them below as well, because I'll probably do a movie on that. I'll also be doing update movies on team transactions and games. If you enjoyed this movie, be sure to give it a like. And most important, subscribe and hit the notification bell to get more awesome content. See you next week. Go Hawks!